Hello and welcome to the June Breakout Room. This is our next in a series of conversations with local leaders about local issues that are important to our communities. We'll cover a range of topics and something for everyone. Be sure to subscribe to our channel on Facebook and YouTube for future updates and conversations. And we have a very timely breakout room today. And now that summer is here and fire season is upon us, this is more needed than ever at this point. So our cities and regions often get questions from residents this time of year about safety and fire prevention. So we have the experts with us. I'm Kevin Wilk, current city council member in Walnut Creek, and my co-host is in the breakout room is Sabina Zafar. Sabina?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the breakout room. Excited to be doing, I think, our third one now together. I'm Sabina Zafar, council member with the city of San Ramon, and I'm very excited to welcome our Fire Chief Meyer and Fire Chief Broschard here today. So Fire Chief Meyer, why don't you go and introduce yourself?
Okay, I'm Paige Meyer. I'm the Fire Chief for the San Ramon Valley Fire Protection District, and we cover pretty much from the border of San Ramon, Dublin to the border of Walnut Creek there in Alamo, and all the communities in between. And I'm happy to be here and have a good conversation. Thank you.
Great. And then if we could go to Chief Broschard now.
Well, good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for being on the breakout room with us today. My name is Broschard. I'm the Fire Chief for Contra Costa County Fire. And Contra Costa County Fire is a large fire protection district that has been through many consolidations of smaller agencies, both city fire departments and fire districts, since the 1960s. And our current coverage area basically goes from San Pablo all the way across to, effective on Friday, all the way out to Discovery Bay. So everything in between and basically north of the San Ramon Valley, much of that is within the Contra Costa County Fire District. So as of Friday, we will have 11 cities within Con Fire's service area, and we have about as many unincorporated areas like Bay Point and East Richmond Heights and Pacheco and others that fall within Con Fire's service area. So grateful to be here. Thank you for the opportunity and looking forward to the conversation.
Terrific, great. Well, thank you. And obviously a lot of residents that you cover between the two of you and your departments. So our first question is for our guests, how do you prepare for fire season, just simply as a department? So Chief Broschard, let's start with you.
Certainly. So there's basically three areas that we prepare for when it comes to what we are now calling peak fire season, because fire season to some extent is virtually year round. Much more mild, obviously, in January, February, but we're just not seeing the seasonal rains like we did. So we still have fire activity in the winter months, but this is what we consider to be peak fire season. So first and foremost, we increase our deployable fire resources, which for Con Fire includes staffing our bulldozer 24 hours a day, basically from June 1st through Halloween. And that's dependent on when peak fire season actually slows down. So we have had it staffed in November as well. We have a 14-person hand crew. We're in our third season of that. And that is staffed 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. That started in May with the early start to peak fire season. Over the past few years, we've increased the quantity and type of wildland fire apparatus that we have available so that we can deploy more crews with the types of equipment that's necessary to combat grass and vegetation fires. Our hand crew has started to work on fuel reduction projects starting this year, and hopeful that that will make a difference and continue to work through the winter months with the hand crew. The second part outside of response is really to start the public education campaign to inform and educate on how to create defensible space, ensure that your property is compliant with our weed abatement standards, educate folks on what they can do to harden their homes, and then also evacuation planning and preparedness. And then lastly, we work with our Fire Prevention Bureau to conduct actual defensible space and exterior hazard inspections. And we go through that on-site inspection and education process, which sometimes does lead to actual enforcement and abatement of properties to make sure that hazards are reduced, risk is reduced, for those particular properties that don't comply with our standards.
Great, thank you. Chief Meyer, anything to add to that?
I think you did a great job of kind of capturing what we do. And he's right on the money. I think hazard abatement is a huge part of prevention during the fire season, making sure that our folks are ready to go in and be able to fight a fire in a home that is defensible. But the only other thing I'd add that I think that we do is, even though it's peak fire season, what we do is we pull everything out and we start training, right? We start doing all the necessary training, because as we do go through some of the slower times, it kind of goes to the back burner. So we get out there, progressive hose lays, talk about tactics, strategies, really look at our zones, making sure that we understand and our battalions understand the fire problem as it relates to our communities. And that tends to be something that I think really gets people's mindset right. But like Chief Broschard said, we have to be ready all the time. It's just a little extra, training just before the season really starts.
Thank you.
So, Chief Meyer, this is probably the driest year so far in the last 3 years. What are some of the concerns you have as we're getting into this dry season again?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think as firefighters go, I think what's happened over the last 5 years is dry. It doesn't matter whether it's been a drier season or there's been a little bit more humidity and rainfall. It's just a different climate that we're dealing with, right? And I think our biggest concern every year is the unknown. And I don't want to speak for Chief Broschard, but I think I have certain areas in my district that just keep me up at night, because I know it's just going to be a more difficult firefight. So that's really the things that stands out to me. The other thing, though, that I think is hitting the fire service, and I think it's worth saying to the community anytime I can recruit people, we're having a hard time hiring people. Quite frankly, we call back people, and Chief Broschard has a much larger department than we have, but I'm sure he has the same problems. When you're calling people back in to help staff, when you have campaign fires or fires within the 9 Bay Area counties, it's difficult right now to fill. We're running short all the time. We're always behind the hiring, kind of the hiring 8 ball. So we're doing the best we can. But those are the things that stand out to me, because we have to balance. And a lot of people don't know this in the community. We have to balance when we get a fire, and I talked to Chief Broschard many times about this. Suddenly we're making a decision of how many resources we're sending out. But when we do that, we have you all at home. So we got to make sure that we don't send too much out, and we balance the need of our community with the need of the greater state. So that'd be something that I'd say really has stood out several years now for me.
Thank you. And Chief Broschard, anything to add to that?
Chief Meyer expressed it well. There are significant constraints and strains on our personnel and on the overall fire systems in the region. One of which is for Confire, an increase in fire activity of 25 to 30% year over year, particularly in the fires related to exterior fires. Some of those are in the months of January, but we're seeing what has been an incredibly busy start to May and June for us, not just with the quantity of fires, but the significance of those fires. And we're all concerned about the communities, as Chief Meyer referenced, the communities that kind of keep us up at night as fire chiefs, for that typical north wind, that really wicked wind that the Bay Area gets in the September and October months, that creates those sort of Oakland firestorm type conditions. But every day here, the normal winds that typically come off the bay, they're the west winds, they can be relatively strong. And what we're seeing is the dry vegetation and the normal winds, not the 5% humidity environment in a north wind, but the normal west winds. We're seeing significant fire spread and significant growth in the fires that are occurring, which is taking a toll on the communities that they're impacting directly, as well as the firefighters that are day after day, shift after shift, having multiple fires to deal with.
Well, I can only imagine the stress that must be, especially as you enter these times of the year. Obviously, there's the Rossburg community, which a residential community of senior citizens, but we all back up against the open space, and there's all those areas that are potentially fire hazards. So great information. And I didn't actually realize that you were looking to, that you're in a hiring crunch. And so we're going to have to get that word out too. So the next question is, building on those last two questions, what recommendations do you have for residents to stay safe during the fire season?
Well, I think from my perspective, and I think Chief Meyer mentioned it, is you have to take responsibility to maintain your property. If everybody maintained their property, we wouldn't have to show up and abate the property. But it's important from a community perspective that every property is properly maintained to reduce the risk of fire spread from house to house, from property to property. So I think the first thing is preparation, whether you can do it yourself or if you have to hire a contractor. Work at making sure that you are reducing the hazards, that you're creating defensible space, that you're removing dead and dying vegetation from around the house, that you're removing flammable vegetation, cypress trees, juniper bushes, all of those trees that look green. On the inside, most of that is dead material, and it's highly flammable, and it assists in fire spread in a really, really big way. And so it's not just the dead and dying, it's also some of the ornamental shrubbery that's flammable that really should be removed. And then make sure that we can get to your place. Make sure that your access road or your driveway, if it's not your typical driveway that just fits one car on it, that we can get up that driveway and that it's safe for us to access, to be able to get up there and to protect you and to protect your property. Some simple things that folks might not really think about. If you are working out in the dry grass, don't mow your grass after 12 o'clock. We've already had fires. People are trying to do the right thing, but the conditions are such that they're mowing at 2 or 3 in the afternoon, and a spark catches a field on fire. Make sure your barbecue outside is clean and maintained. That seems like it doesn't correlate to fires, but we had a significant fire in Martinez yesterday. And it started on the exterior of the home, which then caught the home on fire and then part of the vegetation and threatened the overall community. And then lastly, I can't say this enough, don't use fireworks. Don't buy them, don't use them. They're terrible. We're going into the 4th of July weekend. Last year was the worst 4th of July experience that we've had. Many of our folks that have been here for 30 years said that last year was the worst they've ever seen. We responded to over 100 fires, many of them significant, over a 3-day weekend. There's just too much use of fireworks. And I realize in Alameda County in Dublin, you can buy fireworks and just put them in your trunk and drive them across the border, so to speak, into Contra Costa County. But I can't emphasize it enough. Fireworks just can't be used, even the safe and sane. Too many injuries, way too many fires, and we don't have enough resources to keep up with them.
A timely message indeed. And of course, fireworks are illegal in Contra Costa. I'm still amazed that actually it's legal in Alameda County. It seems like that's something that's time has come. Thank you very much. Chief Meyer, other words of wisdom.
I think you captured it well, Chief. The only other thing I'd say is there are a lot of resources to look at as far as when you're trying to what we call harden your home or make it fire safe from the exterior. But the other thing you can do, and this is just a plug, I think we both have really robust community emergency response teams, so volunteer opportunities for our community to come in and learn what they can do to keep themselves safe during extended periods of time. Anytime that we have people that are self-sufficient, I always say this, there's 45 firefighters on duty in my battalion at any one time, in any one day. That's 45 for any emergency that happens, right? So if we do get something big, and we talk about earthquakes, we talk about a lot of things, but wildland fires are going to be big. They're very possible. Having people that know what to do and are well educated, that's going to be the key to success for the overall community. So that's my only addition.
Great, thank you.
Just want to add that, firefighters were also our heroes during the pandemic, and you guys really stepped up to do so much. Everything from, giving people COVID vaccines to testing, to Chief Meyer's coming up with a mental health program in San Ramon, which was very out of the box, creative way of how we respond to mental health illness, because we saw a big rise during the pandemic. So would you please share with us what that program looks like, kind of a short summary?
Yeah, I'll try to keep it brief. It's fairly extensive, but I can sum it up by saying that what we're seeing, and I don't know about Chief Broschard's area, but we're seeing 20+% jumps in mental health emergency crisis calls. And I, like Chief Broschard, we run our ambulance service. So what we're seeing is unit hours, meaning our ambulances are on these calls more and more. And we actually ran a study and we found out that typically it's about a 60% longer transport than any other transport. Heart attack, vehicle accident, mental health calls are 60% higher. So what we did, our program, we looked at possibly, not at the beginning, possibly going in before the police go in to these calls. And it would depend on the call specific, what the specific call was. It would obviously, our focus right now is the non-criminal, non-violent, non-history of crimes, and an ability to go in and really interface and diffuse the situation for the patient that's having the crisis. And then being a partner to the county who has an MCRT team, the mental health response team that they're putting together, and try to be an intermediary, because what we found is two things, and I have theories about it, but I think we all can agree. Police officers have been vilified in the media to a point that's not acceptable. But what that does is it creates a boundary between police and our community. And police, I believe, tend to be a little bit more maybe black and white, static. So they tend to assign a 5150 or a mental health hold quicker. So we're just trying to get in the middle of those ones that are lower level, that not let them escalate, and hopefully get those folks that are having these emergencies somewhere that they can get help and they don't have this terrible 72-hour hold. I just add this. I'm not saying it's our focus, but in our stats, what we're running, we are seeing the juvenile 5150 holds, 72-hour holds, they are the biggest jumps. And specifically our teen girls from 13 to 17 in our community double the amount of mental health calls of anybody else. And we just feel like you don't always need a police presence for those. So if there's a way we can do something positive and get that, and be a help to the police department, which we want to do too, then we want to do it. So we're hoping for some success there. So we'll be going in first. We'll be evaluating, and then if we need PD, we'll bring them in. So that's the thought process.
Thank you for sharing that. And Chief Broschard, is there anything that you guys are doing, Contra Costa Fire is doing, or something similar or aligned with what San Ramon Fire has done around mental health?
Well, in Contra Costa County, at least in our fire district, there are two programs. The city of Antioch has a pilot program. It does not involve the use of law enforcement, and it also does not involve the use of ambulances. It's designed to deploy two-person teams, a mental health practitioner, and perhaps an EMT, as I understand it, to essentially get the right resource to the person who's having that psychiatric emergency or that mental health crisis. So we're watching that, and as that gets deployed with significant interest to see how that works. Also watching San Ramon Valley's pilot program as well. And then Contra Costa County has a system that they're deploying that's fairly similar to Antioch. It's designed to use mental health practitioners and others, but not law enforcement, to help get the right resource to the folks that need it. For us, it's a significant issue because 15% of our ambulance transport volume is for mental health or psychiatric emergencies. To put that into perspective, that's roughly 30 transports a day, or 11,000 transports a year. And there's really only one facility in Contra Costa County where we can respond to, which gets impacted very quickly, which then has a downstream effect on our system where our ambulances get stuck and can't offload the patient, which ends up having an effect on the overall 911 emergency ambulance transport system. So there's a definitive need to provide a different approach with the appropriate professional resources for those with mental health issues or who are experiencing a psychiatric emergency. And I think between those three different projects that are out there, hopefully one or more of those will determine what's going to be the most successful model moving forward. But no argument here that we need to come up with a different system to approach what is becoming a growing issue.
Great, thank you. And I'm glad you mentioned about the Contra Costa County effort. Walnut Creek's working very closely with the county in deploying this type of a different way for people to be alerted and be able to call when they get a response for somebody who has a mental health crisis. So I'm glad you mentioned that. So we're going to wrap it up with our last question here briefly. And I know this is something that we can help to promote the fire departments then, is do you have resources available, I'm sure you do, for resident education and how to protect their homes from fire, and how can people get that information? So let's start with Chief Meyer on this one.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we have a great website, firedepartment.org. That's our website. If you go to firedepartment.org, you can get all the information you need. I will say in our community, that gets dry, right? People go, oh, I got to go on a website. So we also urge our HOAs, our homeowners, if they'd like to discuss something, we have a partnership with the city of San Ramon. I'll just give it a shout out real quick, where we have an emergency preparedness coordinator now full time. And he's been great in meeting with folks on their specific issue, especially when they're in a high fire risk area. We have no problem going out, taking a look at their problems specific to the HOA or the homeowner. So we urge them not only to look at our website, but reach out to our emergency coordinator, Ron Marley, and he's happy to go out and help and be available as necessary.
Great, thanks. So that's firedepartment, all spelled out, .org.
.org, yep, easy. Great. Yeah, I didn't come up with it. I can't take the credit.
It's easy. And
I wonder how much that's going to go for now.
How about Contra Costa? How can residents get some information about what you're offering there?
It's really similar to what Chief Meyer described. Unfortunately, we tried to get that website, but they beat us to it. So the fire district's website is an acronym. It's CCC, so that's 3 C's, fpd.org. So cccfpd.org. And if you hit the wildfire prep tab, there's a resident's guide to evacuation as well as wildfire preparation. So it's originally designed as a handbook, and it is in print, but you can download it as a PDF. I believe you can download it with a QR code onto your phone and be able to look at the different maps and resources and guides for everything from creating defensible space to choosing appropriate shrubbery and landscape materials. But it's all more or less condensed in a web-based format. We also provide on-site inspections and on-site community group visits. We're getting some Firewise communities up and running. So if 5 or more residents, 5 or more property owners want us to come out, we can help work at getting Firewise off the ground in that particular area. But I can't stress enough that it's a community effort. So it's a neighbor to neighbor issue. It's not just one person. And there's a lot of resources on the web, not just our site, but San Ramon's and others. Very informative material. And one thing I'll close with regards to keeping yourself safe and preparing, if you haven't done so already, I would highly encourage everybody to go to CWS Alerts. CWS, the Community Warning System, is the standardized system within Contra Costa County where law enforcement and fire would notify folks for evacuation. we've got a lot of new tools and resources, but at the end of the day, it all gets communicated through CWS. So that's cwsalerts.com. You can register your home phone, your cell phone, etc. And that's going to be where you're going to get the most timely and accurate information as to what's going on in the moment, with information particular to evacuation instructions and otherwise. So very important. The more people we have registered for CWS alerts, the safer the overall community will be.
Terrific. Great plug there. That's terrific. So as we wrap up here, we're just going to give a couple of plugs for July 4th events for our various cities. Obviously, there's a lot going on in Contra Costa County. As we heard from our chiefs, great to enjoy fireworks that the county or the area provides. Do not do your home fireworks. It is illegal in Contra Costa, and it's just unsafe. So let's not do that. In Walnut Creek, we have our Walnut Creek Band performing at Civic Park. They're at 6 o'clock on July 4th. They have all the festive songs and all the band marches, and it's just a great fun time. It's about an hour. We'll have the current mayor, Mayor Matt Francois, who's conducting on one of the songs. And please come on out, bring the family. It's just a terrific night out, and it's going to be not too hot, and it won't be too cool. It'll be perfect. So that's what's happening in Walnut Creek.
And in the San Ramon Valley, we'll start the day off with a Run San Ramon. So come and join that in the morning, bright and early at 7 o'clock. It's been getting exceedingly popular. I think people like to start their day by running so they can go eat later on. We will also be at the Danville Parade. So hope to see at least Chief Meyer over there with his fire trucks and join me. I always enjoy that parade with the rest of the San Ramon Danville Council over there. And then in the evening, San Ramon at Al Costa Central Park will kick off our summer concert series. And I will be at the Arts Foundation booth serving drinks. So come and say hello and come and dance with us at the concert series. That kicks off, and we'll have 5 or 6 concerts pretty much every Sunday after that. So hope you join us there. Want to say thank you to everybody who joined to watch us today. Thank you, Chief Meyer and Chief Broschard, for being here today. We got some really great information, and I'm sure our residents are very grateful for all the information they've gotten out today. Watch out for our July breakout room. We're almost, I can't believe we're halfway through the year now. So we look forward to seeing you there. And thank you, everybody, and see you in the next breakout room.